to be victims and everything. Maybe it's certain races that claim they're victims, or genders that are victims, or sexual orientations that are victims. Well, every time they pop up about something, every time some sort of issue comes up that's in that wheelhouse, Elizabeth Warren comes out and just spouts off with the most bizarro left-wing rhetoric you could think of. The best way to describe Elizabeth Warren's political positions are essentially populism bordering on communism. That's where she is. And if you've never seen Elizabeth Warren, I would best describe her as Barack Obama without the speaking skills. Barack Obama without the photogenic qualities. You know how Obama always used his eloquence, his speaking skills, his the way that he's very photogenic and looks good in front of a camera. He always used that to cover up his extreme leftist, communist, socialist viewpoints, and how Barack Obama has for years used that gift of speaking. He's a silver-tongued devil. He's used that gift of elocution to take horrible, anti-American, dangerous ideas and make them palpable, make them almost normalize them to some unthinking American people. Well, Elizabeth Warren is like that, except she doesn't have those speaking skills. She just will come right out and give you a bunch of dangerous rhetoric. But she is emerging as a bit of a spokesperson, and the fact that there are people out there who would believe the crap that she says is worrying and dangerous for America. So last week, Warren was out in Detroit, Michigan, giving a speech, which has been kind of looked at and sort of dubbed, if you will, the 11 Commandments of Progressivism. Now, I read through these 11 commandments that Elizabeth Warren put forth for progressivism, which is the nice way of saying liberalism or socialism or communism. Choose your word. And the first time I read through the list, I laughed. I thought it was funny. I thought it was uproariously hilarious. But then I thought, well, you know what? There are people out there that are going to read these things and hear that speech and say, hey, right on. That's exactly what I believe. So it's worthwhile for me and for all of us who believe in America, in conservatism, in traditional values. It's good for us to be able to refute these commandments she's given out. Because let's make no mistake about it. This was essentially a manifesto, if you will, for what Elizabeth Warren believes. And she may be running for president. She won't make it, but even so, these ideas central to her political beliefs are going to be out there. So we need to be able to discuss each of them and poke holes in it and show how asinine they are. So with that in mind, I'm going to take every single one of Elizabeth Warren's commandments from that speech, and I'm going to give a retort to every single one of the 11 right here today on America's Evil Genius. So without further ado, here we go. Here is Elizabeth Warren's first commandment.
We believe that Wall Street needs stronger rules and tougher enforcement, and we're willing to fight for it.
One problem, Elizabeth. It wasn't Wall Street that brought about the stock market crash and the financial crash we had a few years back. It was not a lack of regulation on Wall Street that brought that out. Instead, what caused that was a tremendous amount of government regulation in the financial industry to begin with. Before the federal government got involved in the financial and the banking industry, banks largely did not lend to homeowners who could not pay back the mortgage. They used to have a practice called redlining, where there were certain zip codes that everybody knew, hey, investing in a property there is not a good investment, and banks would not lend there. But the federal government stepped in and made that illegal. So now you had to lend to places where the investments would not be good. You had to lend to people who were far bigger credit risks than anybody else. In short, the federal government's interference forced far more risk into the banking system that was ever there before. Now, yes, some of the banks, some of the financial institutions took it upon themselves to try and mitigate the risk that was forced upon them by, bundling these loans together and trying to turn them into financial products they could make a dollar off of. You can't blame them for that. They're trying to defer their risk that they had no intention, no part of undertaking. And while that didn't work out, it never would have happened had the federal government not decided that, everybody needs to own a home. Every house should be able to be lent money for by a bank. The federal government stopped allowing banks to make their own judgments of risk. What the hell did you think was going to happen? We believe that the free market is the most efficient and just arbiter of consequences to businesses, including banks, that make poor decisions. And we are willing to fight for it. Okay, next commandment.
We believe in science, and that means that we have a responsibility to protect this earth, and we will fight for it.
But science has not conclusively proven that the earth is in danger. Much less has science proven that human activity would be responsible for such danger if it actually existed. No, Elizabeth, there is plenty of debate in the scientific community and everywhere else regarding the presence of man-made climate change and if our actions have had anything to do with it, if it indeed exists. Despite what Al Gore and his hockey sticks will tell you, the debate is long from settled. It's not settled at all. It still goes on every day, even in the scientific community. Besides, can we really say that science has all the answers to every question? There's plenty of things that science does not know the answer to. Now, some of those things they may find the answer to at some point, but there are some things they may never find the answer to. Science is not the be-all and end-all of the universe. And to treat it as though it's the final word on anything shows a drastic misunderstanding of what science is to begin with. We believe that scientists are just as likely to push political and social agendas as anybody else is, and that the pontifications of scientists, just like anybody else, must be viewed critically and within the context of our own observations and our own experience of the world and of our own environment, rather than simply being accepted without critical thought. And yes, Elizabeth, we are willing to fight for it. Next.
We believe that the internet shouldn't be rigged to benefit big corporations, and that means real net neutrality, and we will fight for it.
Think of how beneficial the internet has been to all of us in the last 20, 25, 30 years. It's completely revolutionized so many parts of society. Well, the internet has been so beneficial to us in large part because it's been largely unregulated. There's been far less regulation of the internet as there has been for other modes of communication. Far less regulation of the internet than there has been of television or radio or telephones, things like that. Now, what has happened in this environment of a largely unregulated internet, the internet having been essentially the wild, wild west of our generation? What has been the consequences of that? Well, we've seen all kinds of business opportunities, new business models pop up because of the internet and using the internet. All kinds of people who have gone from relatively modest circumstances to being absolutely wealthy because of the internet. All kinds of innovations and ideas and businesses and goods and services and how you deliver those goods and services because of the internet. I mean, think of things like Amazon and eBay and Netflix and things like that. All of those came about organically, without any government interference, without much government regulation. They popped up because people communicated with each other and it became apparent those are the things that people wanted. And businesses followed suit. No government needed to be involved with it. And going away from business, think about the tremendous diversity and tremendous wide range of thought and speaking and philosophy and things like that you encounter in the internet.